All right, here we go, everyone. Pizza Buffet is live for Divisional Round Weekend, presented by FanDuel. I'm Rob Pizzola, pro bettor and CEO here at the Hammer Betting Network. Morning, everyone. Welcome in. I got to tell you, I was talking to my producer right before the show. I had my annual bowling tournament with friends last night. 4 hours of bowling. Today, it feels like I ran a marathon. That's when you know you're in real trouble as a human. 39-year-old man bowls for 4 hours. Next day, lower back is completely shot. Fingers hurt, arm. But it's not all bad, because I got home last night from bowling. Saw this box on the front porch. I'm not expecting a box. Didn't order anything. I'm like, what did my wife order? You know, all that stuff, all that jazz. And I took this box inside, and I opened it up, and waiting for me was a box of these bad boys right here. Carolina Panthers Divisional Champs 2025, sent straight from Eager. Keep pounding. Pretty sick hats, honestly. So I'm going to have one of these permanently in my background shot going forward. So we can put one of these in the Hammer studio. But that was a nice surprise, nice gift from Dr. E, Eric Eager. Love that. Very, very happy for him this year that the Panthers were able to do something. All right. A bunch of you are in here right now. Quick note. Obviously, we're doing this on Saturday again. If you're used to the Sunday routine, it's the same show, just doing it a day earlier. Same thing. But before we get into the board, quick setup for how this weekend plays. I talked about this last week, but the playoffs are a different beast. Limits get higher much quicker. The openers typically have higher limits, and these numbers get shaped very quickly because you have pros betting really, really early in the week. So if you're expecting me to pop on here and be like, bet this, bet that, give out 1,000 bets, it's not happening. The market's been taking real money all week. The obvious stuff isn't just sitting there waiting for us on Saturday morning. Last week, sides and totals, not my finest work. It's been a fantastic year. Got a couple winners early in the week. I'm like, all right, Packers, Bears over, Jags, Bills under, not big plays or anything. And then I just kept losing bets the rest of the week. It's part of the deal, though. We track it. We learn from it. We move on. Luckily, did get some kind messages from people who cashed a Matthew Golden anytime touchdown. You got paid. Hopefully that made up for, lack of success on sides and totals. But the goal here is good process, getting good numbers. Hopefully we can win some stuff as well. Here's how to use today's show. I'm going to give you my numbers for every single game. I'll tell you where I lead. I'm also going to tell you when I think something is priced right, and I don't think that there's anything to bet there. On a personal level, just for full transparency going in, this is a very light week for me across the board. Sides, totals, props, touchdown scores. This is the lowest volume week for me of the entire year. Obviously, there's less games, but there's not a ton that I love. If that said, I will give out some plays. And if we like something, make sure you get the best number possible, because it makes a big difference. Just because it's the playoffs, we don't need action on every game. Sometimes you can pass. Sometimes you can wait for a better entry point. Sometimes you can wait for live in some instances. Just keep that in mind as well. One more quick thing before we roll. You saw last week, normally I save anytime touchdown stuff for the end of the show. I'm going to bring it up as we go game by game today, like I did last week. I got a bunch of tabs open here with odd screens. I've closed as many as possible. If there's any lag on your end, let's pick a random number. Let's go with the number 8 in the chat. If you see severe lag or anything, just drop an 8 in the chat, and I will just keep closing more and more and more to make sure. Again, I want to make sure that we get the best prices on everything, and we're up to date with everything. All right. One more reminder. I swear we'll get started here as I continue to close tabs. I will post my fair values for every touchdown score over in our Discord at discord.gg/hammer. They're going to be in the NFL channel. If you go to the Rolls channel and you just click on the football, you'll get a notification in real time the second that I post them. I'm telling you this because these numbers can get bet and they can move pretty quickly. An example would be Christian Kirk on Monday night. I saw someone bring it up already. I posted it in the Discord. I wasn't able to give it out on air like an hour later because it moves so much. I want you guys to have the best chance to actually grab a good price. So check it out in the Discord. Of course, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Share it out. Helps a ton. If you're watching on X, retweet. Goes a long way. All right, let's roll. First divisional round game on the board. Let's get into it. It is the Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos. This game flipped favorite earlier in the week. Denver now up to, looks like minus 118 at FanDuel, which is in line with a lot of the money line prices across the board. Total in the game is 45.5 at FanDuel. Some spots with 46, some spots with 46.5. This is the game this weekend where I feel like I have a feel for the overall shape of it, right? Conditions are fine. You got mild temperatures, light wind, no precipitation. It's a good weather football game. But the handicap for me is more game script focused. So if you start with Buffalo's offense here, because even when they're healthy, this is a team that leans run. They're negative in pass rate over expected on the season. They're very intentional about how they, how often they want to put Josh Allen in these pure drop back situations. Now you layer in the injury situation, and I think that tendency only increases, right? Josh Allen is banged up on a short week. He had 3 different injuries, which he was listed with on the injury report. It's another road game for them. The receiver room is extremely thin. Curtis Samuel's activated, and he's going to play, which will help because anybody will help. But they're without Josh Palmer, Gabe Davis, Tyrell Shavers. They also elevated Frank Gore again from the practice squad at running back. That doesn't bode well for the status of Ty Johnson today. And then you've got Dalton Kincaid, who is still dealing with a leg issue. I believe it's a PCL injury in his knee, similar to what Ricky Pearsall has going on right now for the 49ers. So when you zoom out, this doesn't look like a Buffalo offense that's just dying to go out there and spread it out and play fast. Now, the good news for Buffalo is that the best way to play this game lines up with what they're already good at. They are elite running the ball inside. They run inside at a top 10 rate in the league. They're first in the league in EPA per inside rush. James Cook, much better runner inside than outside. And Denver's defensive line is small. Their interior run defense is where they're the most vulnerable, I think, on the entire defense. They're in the bottom third in the league defending inside runs. They also play a lot of light boxes, especially on early downs. So Buffalo should be able to get into those downhill runs and stay on schedule, in my opinion. That's the easiest way for them to play. It's also the safest way for them to play, given Josh Allen's situation and the limitations in the pass catcher group as well. And the other thing is, if Buffalo doesn't get into obvious passing situations, that's where Denver can make life uncomfortable, right? Like the Broncos are one of the best pressure rate teams in the league. They're top 10 in sack EPA. The rush comes from everywhere. Zach Allen can be a problem inside. DJ Jones pushes the pocket a bit. Nick Bonito can win on the edge. So Denver has a very clear path to collapsing the pocket here. The coverage on the back end is very real too. You got Patrick Surtain. He can completely erase someone from the game. The safeties have been strong in terms of not giving up deep catches. Normally, teams would look to attack Riley Moss, but the Bills' secondary, their secondary receivers, I should say, they're not big separation guys, especially Keon Coleman. He can't get any separation. So to me, Buffalo's best case offensive plan is pretty obvious. You run inside, you stay ahead of the sticks, you mix in Allen in some high leverage spots like sneaks, third down, scramble, stuff like that. You don't put him in a spot where he has to be Superman against an elite rush and tight coverage. That doesn't necessarily mean it's given that Buffalo is going to play like that, but I think it's a fair expectation. Now you flip it over to Denver's offense. The first thing to note is they're healthy. The bye week was great for Denver. This is a completely, fully healthy football team. But offensively, I also think they're going to have a pretty clear plan here. And it doesn't involve Bo Nix throwing his way into a big number against Buffalo's pass defense. Denver is a heavy outside run team. That's one of the spots where Buffalo is weakest. They're down near the bottom of the league in EPA on outside runs. Denver has had a lot of success attacking these spots this year. And Buffalo's allowed a lot of run-heavy scripts because of the way that they play defense. They defend the pass well. They don't defend the run well. When you adjust for opponent, teams run at one of the highest rates in the league against the Bills. We saw Jacksonville run the ball very effectively last week, but they abandoned it a lot because the Jags are built to be a pass-first team. That was just the way that they play down the stretch this year. I don't think Sean Payton makes that mistake. If he can run the ball and keep this game in front of him, he's going to do it. I think Sean Payton's one of the more predictable head coaches in the league in terms of game plans. Where I get skeptical on Denver's ability to push this game, towards a higher scoring game is when you look at how they throw the ball and who they're throwing against. Denver throws under 10 air yards, short passes at one of the highest rates in the league. Buffalo top 3 defending short passes this year, especially out of those two high looks that they live in a lot. If Denver wants to win through the air, it probably has to come with some outside throws to Courtland Sutton, some curl and go type of stuff, maybe some screens to set up something later. But in general, I just don't trust Bo Nix in this spot to drop back and carve up a good pass defense in a playoff game. And when Denver's faced better pass defenses this year, that's basically been the story. They've had very low success rates. They've struggled to score points. That's been the case for them all year. Now, Buffalo's defense does have some injury issues. Jordan Poyer is out at safety. Maxwell Hairston is out again at corner. The secondary depth isn't perfect, but they get Ed Oliver back. That's a pretty meaningful piece on the defensive line, especially on early downs for them, provided he's anywhere near full health. The bigger point for me, though, is that Buffalo's pass defense is the strength of the team. And Denver's pass game is not something I want to bet on. And I don't think it's something that Sean Payton is going to want to bet on against this defense. So when I put it all together, I think this game has a very specific shape. Buffalo wants to run. Denver wants to run. Both teams can have some success doing that. If both teams are running the ball, the pace naturally slows down. You get fewer total possessions. You get longer drives. You get more third and manageable, fewer explosive plays. That doesn't mean that nobody scores. It just means that scoring comes more slowly. And I think that's where the under comes in terms of my number running this game. So ultimately, just a lean. Again, if this was a regular season game and the market was, 46 and I made the total 45.4 like I am right now, I'm not playing that. It's not enough to overcome the VIG. If you're looking to force something for the playoffs, the under is where I would look in this game. From a side perspective, I'm kind of right on market. It's tough to say. I think Denver deserves to be a short favorite in this game. I think the bye week is incredibly important in these NFL playoffs. Obviously, when they switch the structure from 2 teams getting a bye to 1, it's 1 team with a week off late in the year to get healthy, to game play. And you got a Buffalo team who's got a quarterback beat up on the other side. So it really worked out in their favor, in my opinion. All right. From a prop perspective, this is a reminder. I'll do my best to give you cutoffs and things of that nature. You might as well draw a square on my head for some of these games for today because I have some really square opinions, I would say. But I think RJ Harvey is going to have a big game. And right now in the receiving yards market, over 18.5 receiving yards, minus 112 at FanDuel. That's the best price in market. Most other books are at 19.5. I also like them in the rush and receiving market. There's a 74.5 out there. FanDuel's at 77.5. But ultimately, I think, when I go to my handicapping strengths every single week, especially when I'm doing props, I'm trying to predict snap counts and target share and like all the usage for these players. I've done very well with Sean Payton games in the past. And let's see, maybe I'm going to be wrong, but I feel like this is a pretty run-heavy approach for the Bills, the Broncos, and RJ Harvey's heavily involved. Also think that in these types of games, Payton is pretty screen-heavy as well. I don't want to say he doesn't trust Bo Nix, but I think that the level of trust is not super high. And the likelihood that they're scheming stuff underneath, easy looks to get him into the flow, is important in this type of spot. So I like RJ Harvey overs in the receiving yardage market. Technically, I have an edge on him in the rush yards, but rush and receiving as well. Can play that however you're interested in playing that. Also on the Broncos side, this one's very, very, very marginal, but Marvin Mims over on receptions. I see a looks like minus 130 right now at FanDuel, minus 120 elsewhere. Troy Franklin's snap counts have just been decreasing as the year has gone on. And again, when I plug in the usage for Broncos wide receivers, Mims pops a little bit. You can also play the over 12.5 receiving yards if you want less vig. That's totally fine as well. Yeah, I know the stuff against Hitman, guys. We will see. I mean, Hitman's track record on RJ Harvey, not the strongest, I will say. He would be the first to admit it as well. But yeah, definitely, especially in the markets this week with guys like Hitman, with services like Establish the Run, you're seeing prop stuff bounce all over the place, generally speaking. What do you think of McLaughlin? Not much. Didn't come remotely close to playing anything McLaughlin related. What about Bo Nix rush yards? Let's see where that's at now. Obviously, I'm aware of the playoffs and these numbers being increased. 25.5 FanDuel. It's kind of right where I project him, so I don't really have a strong opinion on that one either. There's one anytime touchdown score that I like in this game. Again, always want to shop around. That's going to be Pat Bryant on the Denver side of things. Plus 320 at FanDuel is what I will officially lock in for our price here. I do see plus 340 there as well. Yeah, that's come down, Mike, unfortunately, since the beginning of the show. But my fare on Pat Bryant is plus 288. So again, small play at plus 320. But that's where I'm going for an anytime touchdown in Buffalo, Denver. Outside of that, not a whole lot that I've been looking at for this game. Okay, we're going to get into more games here in a second, but the divisional round is where the NFL's best take center stage. You got 8 teams, 4 games, no second chances, and with everything on the line, FanDuel is turning on playoff mode because all customers get a profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Each game day during the divisional round, today and tomorrow, you'll find a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts waiting for you in the app. More boosts means more way to level up your playoff bets. Pick the matchups you believe in, take your shot on an upset, build a parlay that fits the moment, then you apply your profit boosts and you go after even bigger payouts. FanDuel makes it fast, easy, and fun to get in on the playoff action. And when your bet wins, you'll get paid instantly. Visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. That's FanDuel.com/forwardprogress. You must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Of course, 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration and max wager amount. Terms are at sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right. Rob, this is a massive request, but once NFL ends, you should dive headfirst into NBA. I know it's not your specialty, but I'd love to listen to it. That's not going to happen, to be honest with you. I tried to get back into the NBA. I think the product sucks. So it's really challenging. Also, like learning a sport from scratch and just modeling it from the ground up. I'm not at that point in my life anymore. I'm just not there. San Francisco at Seattle. The spread is now -7 across the board. We have seen some under money in market. This morning, Adam Schefter did tweet something related to Sam Darnold that triggered a little bit of under money. All right, let's actually start with San Francisco here. The injuries really define how you have to think about San Francisco as well, right? I know there's a lot of focus on Darnold, but losing George Kittle is enormous. I'm a huge George Kittle fan. It's not just losing a target, it's losing the engine of a lot of what they do offensively. He's their best run blocker. He's their best edge blocker. He's a huge part of how San Fran would stress defenses in the middle of the field. The 49ers run more 21 personnel than any team in the league. And Seattle's been the best defense in football against 21 personnel all season. That was already a problem. And now you're asking the 49ers to function in those looks without Kittle. You're going to probably see some new wrinkles in the offense today. They lean into that. I mean, that's a real downgrade to both their running game and to their ceiling on play action as well. On top of that, San Fran not going to get Fred Warner back off IR. That would have been a big surprise anyways, in all honesty, but it also would have been a boost because Warner, he's a player who cleans everything up, right? He handles communication in the middle of the field. He erases a lot of the mistakes in coverage. He's a huge part of why their defense has completely fallen off. Without them, they've been very thin at linebacker. They're thinner at safety now with Jair Brown out. Overall, they're just much more fragile in the middle of the field. It's not a healthy San Fran team. That said, these teams played in Week 18. The result is, I don't want to say is misleading. Seattle absolutely outplayed them by a mile, but San Francisco was without Trent Williams in that game. And that changes everything for their offense. When Williams is out, the run game loses efficiency. The protection breaks down faster. Brock Purdy doesn't get the same clean pockets that he needs to operate in. So while Seattle deserves credit for that game, I'm hesitant to treat that as like the definitive version of this matchup. Although I still think the Seahawks D wins more often than not. From a schematic standpoint, San Fran, they can still moderately function offensively. Seattle plays a lot of too high coverage, one of the highest rates in the league. Purdy's been much more efficient against too high looks than single high. The 49ers use a lot of motion. Their drop back success rate jumps significantly when they use motion. They have one of the best offensive play callers in the league in Kyle Shanahan. He can still manufacture offense with this group, even without Kittle. But the margin for error is smaller now. It's tough. Now you flip it to Seattle's offense because this is where the late week development really changes the entire conversation about this game. Seattle's profile is very clear. When Sam Darnold is kept clean, they're very efficient and they're dangerous. When he's pressured, the offense it drops off sharply. The problem for San Fran is that they're one of the worst teams left in the playoff field at generating pressure. In the latter half of the year, they've been near the bottom of the league in pressure rate and sack EPA. They don't have a four-man rush that you can reliably trust to win. Bryce Huff has really been the only consistent threat, and that's not enough by itself. That's why Seattle's play-action game has been a problem for the 49ers. Since about mid-season, San Fran has struggled very badly against play-action. Seattle uses it at a very high rate. In the final game of the season, the Seahawks were very efficient off of play action. AJ Barner's quietly become a big part of that as well. Then, of course, you have JSN, who's just a matchup nightmare, especially for a zone-heavy defense. You can move him all over the formation. He wins against single high. He wins against double high. It's very hard to deal with him using zone. But now we have the Sam Darnold injury. And that injects a lot of uncertainty into the game. Oblique injuries for any player are a problem. For quarterbacks, it's very tricky. It's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to play today. He hasn't thrown a ball since he hurt his oblique. Even if he plays, and even if he says he's good to go, it can affect your velocity. It can affect the spin and the rotation on the ball. It can affect his willingness to throw on the move. That matters a lot for an offense that relies heavily on play action and timing. And because of that, I have zero faith in the number that I created for this game. Because in my opinion, any limitation is really going to cap Seattle's explosive ceiling. So my numbers lean Seattle and over in the game. I simply cannot play either of those because of the Darnold situation. The path to an over still exists. But if Darnold is even slightly compromised, that path narrows quickly. I think this is a good game to live bet, potentially. I think you'll know very early on what Darnold looks like. I'd like to see if Seattle takes a deep shot in the first couple drives. But at this point, I just don't see much value either way. Tough game to price. S. Elliott, will you be looking to get live Seattle? I'm not looking to get anything before the game. I don't go into the game being like, oh, let's pass on this so that I can potentially get this live. You're paying a little bit more vig generally across the board. I'm just reacting to what's happening in the game that may have been priced differently prior. That's how I live bet, right? If you got a receiver that, is, I don't know, priced at, let's say 1.5 catches or something like that. Usually the expectation around that receiver is that they're going to get roughly 15 to 20 snaps a game. If they're on the field for every play of the first or second drive, then that's a signal to me that maybe they're still underpriced in the market. And I look at the price and I react accordingly. I don't like to go in with this existing notion of I want to find this in the game. Remember that the live lines are also derived off of the closing price in the game. So if this closes 7 and Darnold starts, there's a moderate assumption there that he's healthy in the game. And if he looks really bad in the early going, San Fran team total could be worth a look. But there's lots of things. So I just react to what I'm seeing in real time. And I try to price it before I bet it. That's the biggest key. So what should this number be for me? Did Darnold's props all go lower after the oblique announcement? Yes, they did. Which, again, just common sense that, this tends to happen in the market every week with an injury. Most of my bets this week, I want to say, are things that are opposite steam or line moves. So again, everything's relative to price, right? When people say bet this guy over, well, it's got to be over at a certain price. And some of these guys are moving a ton. For me, I think Christian McCaffrey is undervalued in the running game this week. 54.5 at FanDuel. That's a pretty good price, like a 90th percentile price in market. And people might be like, well, Rob, the Seahawks defense is really good. I get it, guys. I get it. Christian McCaffrey was priced at against the Eagles last week? 62.5 yards. You know what he was priced at when they played Seattle in week 18? 66.5 yards. 69.5 yards prior to that against Chicago. So I don't think that the 49ers have this super efficient running game, but I do think they're going to run the ball heavily. I think McCaffrey's looking at something on average between 18 and 20 carries. Brian Robinson Jr. usage has dropped off as the games have become more important as well. That used to be a look that I loved in the regular season, Brian Robinson Jr. overs. But I like Christian McCaffrey over in the mid-50s. I think that has been adjusted too much. Another thing you're going to want to keep an eye on in this game is you will get inactives Let's see what the game start time is at 8 o'clock. So inactives will come in around 6:30 Eastern time for this game. You might be watching Bills Broncos, but might want to pay attention to that because Ricky Pearsall is up in the air for this game. 3 limited practices. If Ricky Pearsall being in or out is going to affect DeMarcus Robinson the most of any receiver. I think if Pearsall is back, you might want to quickly fire on DeMarcus Robinson unders. If Pearsall is out, you might want to quickly fire on DeMarcus Robinson overs. That's kind of just the way that I'm looking in the late window to react to that situation. Pearsall being active doesn't mean he's going to play a full workload. It'll hurt Robinson more than others. From an anytime touchdown perspective, we're going to hit Brock Purdy at plus 550 at FanDuel for official record keeping. I see some 650 out there. Again, if this is your first time watching Pizza Buffet, you might not know that Brock Purdy's a guy that I consistently find value in the anytime touchdown scorer market. He's the guy I like the most in this game, especially with the amount of pressure that the Seahawks are able to generate. I think Purdy will be on the move quite a bit in this game. So my fare is closer to 5-1. It's not, again, huge edges or anything like that, but that's where I'm at. Fair value on Brock Purdy's plus 498 right now. So you can do with that what you will. All right, quick timeout before the Sunday window. If you've watched this show this season, and you're like, hey, you know what? This actually helps me. Whether that's the picks or the breakdowns of the games or just generally how you might think about football, please take 2 seconds, hit like, hit subscribe. We're right in around 10K right now. You know, it's important for that algorithm. And it's important for our crew as well. We work really hard on this stuff. One of the easiest ways to help us grow is just to like the comment and subscribe to our content as well. One click, the easiest way to support all that work. And of course, if you're watching on X, just retweet it. Help get us in front of a few more people as well, as that will go a long way. All right, 2 Sunday games. Before we do that, I know this is I am not a Purdy hater. I'm just going to put it back out there. Not a Purdy hater. Everything is relative to expectation. I think sometimes people have Purdy in a level that is a little bit too high. I wouldn't hate Brock Purdy to be the quarterback of my team. I just think sometimes he gets elevated to a status where he's not. Houston at New England. This is one of those games where I think the market has done a pretty good job over the course of the week. And my lean towards New England is, I guess, more about agreeing with where the number has settled rather than I think that there's some big inefficiency here now. Right now, we're sitting in that awkward range across the market between Patriots -3 and -3.5. So FanDuel has -3, -118. You'll see some other spots that are -3.5, +100. It's kind of like that in-between range. And that's very close to where I make the game. And it reflects how thin the margins are in the postseason. The injury situation is a big part of why the number moved and why I agree with the move. Because Houston being without Nico Collins is a massive blow. It's not just losing a good receiver. It's losing the one player in the offense who can really tilt coverage and create explosives. The Texans already struggle throwing deep relative to the rest of the league. This isn't the Texans from 3 years ago where it's Nico Collins and Tank Dell like flying downfield. They don't have anyone with a high average depth of target. Collins was the closest that they had to a true difference maker. He could generate some big gains with yards after catch as well. Without him, the passing game, it just becomes much more condensed. You got Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins. Like, these are not bad receivers, but when you elevate them into like needing to be the number 1 and number 2 guys, being asked to win consistently against a defense that disguises coverages really well like New England does, that's tough. On the New England side, the injury report is very positive for them. Christian Gonzalez cleared concussion protocol very early this week. It's huge for that defense because they want to play some man. They want to rotate some looks behind it as well. Gonzalez, kind of an eraser on defense. They get Kairos Tonga back in the middle at nose tackle. That's going to help. Houston uses a lot of heavy personnel looks as well. So having your big nose tackle back is big. Harold Landry is listed as questionable. My expectation is that he will play. He's been dealing with some knee injury for weeks now. I want to say going back 5 or 6 weeks. This feels more like, load management with him being listed as questionable and not practicing in the final practice. So overall, it's a pretty healthy Patriots defense. From a matchup perspective, this game is really, I would say, strength on strength in one key area, which is Houston's pass rush against New England's passing game. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter are game wreckers. Houston generates pressure at an elite rate. They're number one in EPA generated when they do get pressure. So they force turnovers. They get pressure in big spots. That's the cleanest path for Houston to stay in this game or even flip the game. And I'm a big Drake May fan, but his biggest statistical weakness has been taking sacks. The Patriots are below average in sack EPA allowed. Sometimes May can hold the ball too long when his first read isn't there. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But there's also counters that are built into New England's offense because May's been very good against single high coverage this year. Houston shows a lot of it. Now, granted, a lot of the single high that he's faced has been bad pass defenses, so it's not apples to apples. But the Patriots pass catchers have been very effective against those looks. Stephon Diggs' numbers against single high are outstanding. Hunter Henry has been a very reliable middle of the field option. Even Pop Douglas can win underneath as well with his speed. If May gets even like a moderate amount of time in the pocket, I think there's going to be throws available in this game. Another important wrinkle here is Drake May's scrambling ability. Houston's defense is very good at turning pressure into sacks, but they've been one of the worst teams in the league at defending quarterback scrambles. And Drake May's been top tier in scramble EPA this season. So even when Houston does win up front, there's a real chance that Drake May can turn some broken plays into first downs rather than just taking some drive-killing sacks every time. That matters a lot in a game where the total's 41 and points are expected to be at a premium. When Houston has the ball, I think New England's defensive approach becomes really interesting. Patriots also play a lot of single high, but they're also very good at rotating late. They disguise coverage really well. It was very apparent in the game against the Chargers last week. It caused real problems for that offense. CJ Stroud is much better against single high than two high, but without Nico Collins, I'm not sure Houston has the personnel to consistently punish these rotations downfield. The Patriots linebackers are the most obvious area to attack, but that requires timing. It requires precision. It's harder to do. It's just all harder to do when you don't have like your alpha receiver on the outside. Weather-wise, I mean, we haven't talked about this yet. It's not a disaster. It's not perfect either. Temperatures are going to be cold, not extremely, but cold. Wind doesn't look like it's going to be an issue, but as we get closer to game time, there's an increasing likelihood of snow, especially as the game goes on. This second half might have a ton of snow. That doesn't kill offense. It tends to favor the team that can stay on schedule. I like that for New England. Long developing routes are a little bit more challenging. Tends to hurt pass rushes a little bit more, which, that's the strength of what Houston does as a team. So when I zoom out, I just feel like this is a game where New England has the higher floor. They're healthier in the sense that they don't have any key players missing. It's a home game, which counts for something. The weather, as it goes on, I think actually is going to kind of favor them as well. So I agree with the move. My raw number is New England minus 3.4. If you're in pick'em pools or whatever, or you just wanted to force some action, New England would be the side for me. But once it got bet out on the Collins absence, I don't know that there's a ton more that you can do here. From a prop look, all right, this one's interesting. If you watched the Monday Night Football game with me here on Forward Progress, the watch along, we had, I'll call it a fun sweat, even though I thought it would be a nightmare sweat in the game. We took Jalen Noel under a half reception on Monday Night Football. It won. He got one target. We end up winning that. I'm flipping it for this week. I'm taking Jalen Noel over on receiving yards. It's very small. It's 8.5 minus 108 at FanDuel. There's other 8.5s out there. I would play the 9.5 as well. You could also pivot to potentially playing his long reception over at 7.5 instead. But it's tough to figure out Houston's wide receiver. When Nico Collins was out earlier in the year, Christian Kirk was also out. So we don't have like this large sample of how this rotation is going to play out. The big thing for me here is that Justin Watson is also out for Houston. Justin Watson may mean nothing to you in the grand scheme of things, but that would be Jalen Noel's competition down near the bottom of the depth chart. And when I look at this game, I think Houston is more likely trailing than not. They're 3.25 point underdogs in the game. I think that's going to push Noel's snaps up to the 20% range, even higher maybe, into 20 to 30%. So I'm flipping on Jalen Noel. I think he gets more usage than anticipated. Another prop look. Typically in the playoffs, we see more quarterback scrambling. That's why everyone wants to bet these quarterback overs. There's one that I like under, and it's CJ Stroud at 10.5 yards. That's pretty consistent across the board. You can get 10.5 without an issue. Minus 114 at FanDuel. I'll track that. Post-concussion for CJ Stroud this year, he has simply not been running the ball, even when he has opportunities. I don't know if that's team orders. I don't know what it is, but if you look at pre-concussion, he was really running the ball. 6, 7, 8 yards, 6, 7, 8 attempts per game. Post-concussion, it's just not there. And if you watch the games, which I do as well, when the opportunity's there, he still doesn't. And I'm just going to bet on that not changing this week. I know how much the game means. I know it's high leverage, but I'm playing CJ Stroud under on rush yards. Anytime touchdown score market, we're going chalk tonight. Chalk player that I think is underpriced is tomorrow. Ramondre Stevenson. Plus 170 at FanDuel. There's multiple 170s available out there. I have him closer to plus 150, 149.5 as my true price on Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots. You get down to the red zone. You never know if it's going to be Stevenson or Henderson. They split snaps. I get it. I account for all that stuff when it comes down to it. Okay. Before we get into late Sunday, quick programming note. We like to be loaded up with watch-alongs during the playoffs. Tonight, we're live right here. Seahawks 49ers. I'm on. Game starts at, what's our game start time? 8, so I'll be going at 7:45. Hopefully, Bills-Broncos done by then, but potentially Austin Mock on the stream. We got Jeff Feinberg, we've got Ian McMillan, and Drew Dinsick, the whale capper, is joining me tonight as well. We go through props, SGPs, anytime touchdowns. We ride out the game live. It's a good time if you want to stop in tonight for Seahawks 49ers. Tomorrow night, G-Stack George is live for Rams Bears. That's going to be with Jason, Clive, Sammy P, Flup, Hitman. It's a big crew for tomorrow night. If you can watch live, awesome. It's pretty enjoyable in real time if you can make it. And it's also fun for me. It's pretty fun for me in real time when there's a lot of people in there chatting up. It's probably my favorite piece of content to do. I'm going to be watching the game anyways. I might as well turn on the screen and interact with you guys. So that's that. Final game, Rams and Bears. A really interesting way to end the board this week because it's a game where the market has mostly reacted to what I'll call external factors I think that reaction has created a little bit of value if you're willing to look past the conditions in the game. Right now, Rams laying an expensive 3.5 on the board at FanDuel, mostly 4s in the market. Total is sitting 48.5. After being as high as 50.5 earlier in the week. And most of that move down has been driven by weather. And I'm not going to argue that the weather does not matter here. I'm just going to argue that I think it's probably gone a bit too far. Although, you know what? The reality is I was going to be skewed to this over here one way or another. Like if it was clean conditions, I would have been betting the over at 50.5 very quickly. So I think this is just a game where, let's start with the Rams offense. This is where the biggest matchup edges exist in this game because the Rams passing game is extremely concentrated, right? You have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. They just dominate targets. That makes life very easy for Matt Stafford. He knows exactly where his answers are pre-snap. He moves them around. Chicago's defense has lived off turnovers this season. When you strip those out, they're bottom 7 in EPA allowed. So basically, the Bears give up a lot in the passing game. This is just a translation for those who don't understand EPA. But they've been able to force turnovers at timely spots this year. But the middle of the field has been a consistent problem for them. They're near the bottom of the league in EPA allowed on throws over the middle of the field. That is where Matthew Stafford is very comfortable, especially off play action. He targets the middle of the field as much as any quarterback in the league. The Bears also took a very meaningful hit on defense last week with TJ Edwards breaking his fibula. He's their best linebacker. He's a good tackler. He was an important piece in coverage in that linebacking group. Losing him, I mean, the linebackers are bad there. It opens up the second level, especially against an offense like the Rams that loves to use motion. They love to use play action to stress the linebackers. I mean, the Rams are going to be able to create favorable looks for their tight ends. And they have 4 healthy tight ends right now. They're going to be able to create good looks for Puka on those in-breaking routes, even in cold conditions. The other thing that stands out to me is the Rams' run game. They've been excellent running outside the tackles this year. Chicago has struggled to defend that all season long. They're bottom 5 in EPA against outside runs. That's an area where the Rams can stay very efficient. I mean, if your concern is Stafford can't throw deep in these freezing temperatures, well, there's a very clear path to success for the Rams on the ground as well. It's important. It gives the Rams a way to move the ball and stay on schedule, even if the passing efficiency drops a little bit. Chicago's offense also has some things working in their favor. They use play action at one of the highest rates in the league. The Rams have been one of the worst defenses against play action all season long. That's been consistent. The Bears' outside run game has also been very efficient. That run scheme has pretty much functioned against every single opponent so far this year. If Chicago can establish that early, it opens up their play action game, which is where Caleb has been at his best as well. Now, defensively, the Rams are much healthier than they were down the stretch. That's important to note. They're only without Akello Witherspoon at corner, but they're healthy everywhere else. They had Quentin Lake return last week, Josh Wallace this week. So back-to-back, they get nickel corners back into the lineup. Kevin Dotson returning at right guard is also a very big deal on offense. The Rams splits with and without him are drastic, extreme. His return stabilizes both the run game and interior protection. Cottage in the chat says, feels like Dotson was worth a point in this spread. I would disagree with that. I don't think there's a guard in the league that's worth a point, but he's worth it. I mean, it matters a lot to the offense. Now, on the weather, it's cold. Very cold. Extremely cold. We had temperatures like this in Toronto this week. I was outside, the snowblower, gloves on. My hands are still fucking freezing. You know, you have temperatures around 20 degrees where your wind chill is closer to 5 to 10 Fahrenheit. That's cold. You got wind in the 10 to 15 mile an hour range with some gusts above 20. That's not ideal, but it's also not the kind of wind profile that completely kills passing either. Cold can have very different impact on games. It also depends on whether it's combined with heavy wind, if it's combined with precipitation. All that matters, right? Not every cold game is created equal. There's also, historically, a downgrade to tackling in really cold conditions, if you were to just look at missed tackle rates. And when you've got multiple players on both sides that are elite in terms of yards after catch, that matters. You know, a missed tackle in cold weather might turn a 3-yard play into a 10-yard play, 5 yards into 20 yards. But you do have to consider that the possibility that it's just so cold that the offense cannot function. It's tough, right? I see the stuff going around, floating around about Matt Stafford's numbers in the cold. They're definitely worse. I know the 1-9 record in the last 10, it's very skewed and not accounting for certain things. You know, there was a game where the Rams played the Jets, for example. They won 19-9. They didn't even really try to throw the ball. It was like they just knew the Jets offense wasn't going to move it on them. Stafford had like 19 attempts in that game total. They just ran the ball at will. Last year in the playoffs, Stafford had a solid game on the road at the Eagles. They could have won that game. Now, granted, that was a temperature of 29. It wasn't this. There was snow, but you have at least some sample of Stafford being able to do it in the cold. You have the skill position players, Devontae Adams, like his whole career at Lambeau Field, essentially. You know, you have guys like Kyron Williams, who played at Notre Dame in the cold, right? Puka played at BYU. So I try to do this all mathematically using historical comps to determine what the downgrade to offense should look like. There's definitely a downgrade. My total is still in between 49.5 and 50. So this is, of all the things this week, this is the one where if it was a regular season game, I would probably play this for a small bet, this total. I wouldn't be going nuts. Because it's the playoffs and things are tighter, this is the biggest edge for me. But the market adjustment makes sense. I think it overshot slightly in this game. On the side, I don't have a strong opinion. I understand the move towards the Rams. They're healthier. They're more consistent. They do have to win by margin, though. That's a little bit of a different story. You're betting a point spread. You know, someone mentioned in the chat, who have the Rams blown out? I saw that comment. Who have the Rams blown out? I mean, they've blown out plenty of teams this year. I know they've been bad, but they definitely blew out Arizona twice. They blew out the Bucks. They blew out the 49ers. They blew out the Saints. They blew out the Jags. They blew out the Titans. More than half their wins have been blowouts. So that's that. Apocalyptic Truth Teller. Stafford was in the NFC North for a decade. He was. His numbers in those outdoor games were bad when he was with Detroit. But again, let's just use common sense here. Stafford wasn't as good earlier in his career. Those Lions teams were not good. He made the playoffs like one time in his entire history in Detroit. These were not good football teams. He has arguably the best offensive play caller in the history of the NFL calling plays for him now. Sean McVay is an offensive genius. So, like, I don't know why I would use those games. They were so long ago with different structure on offense. I've grown up in Canada. I'm in the Toronto area. It gets cold here. I've played. It's not remotely close to the same comparison. But you know, you're in 8th grade and you're playing at recess and you're playing tackle football in the middle of the winter. You know, out there for 40 minutes. It's cold. You try to tackle some guy and you feel it so much more. I get it. There's definitely something there as a whole in those conditions, but I think that we're just a little bit too far at this point. I think we've gone a little bit too far. Speaking of going a little bit too far, I got to tell you, there's been one player in the NFL this year that has been a cash cow for overs. And this is going to be the first time I'm going to reverse trend on Colston Loveland, my guy. I bet some Colston Loveland unders this morning The market did not move when I bet those unders. Maybe you can even wait further till game time. I don't know. But FanDuel has 58.5, which is a really good price. A couple other spots have 58.5 as well. His last 3 games, the targets have been 15, 13, and 10. His usage is through the roof. I get it. I'm also projecting him for high usage in this game. However, this line is now 11 yards higher than any other game this season. This is a massive increase for Colston Loveland. This increase should have happened 5 weeks ago. But this is a Rams team that has been very good at defending tight ends. Second lowest yards per attempt in the entire league. We are getting into the range where I got a reverse course on Colston Loveland. Under 58.5. I like the price at FanDuel on Caleb Williams over 1.5 touchdown passes at plus 128. There's other spots that have plus 128 as well on Caleb over 1.5. Again, just a price play. I do like the market, agree that the Rams should be favored in this range. I don't, you guys know my total on the game, so maybe I'm a little bit skewed towards that. But ultimately, I do think the Bears are going to, in a lot of scenarios, are going to be chasing this game, so to speak. So I played that for a little bit. It's been interesting to try to figure out the tight end situation for the Rams because Terrence Ferguson is back. The one thing I do believe in for the Rams is that Colby Parkinson will still see a ton of snaps. This one is a smaller play, but again, FanDuel, great price, over 2.5 plus 116. You need plus 105 or better on Colby Parkinson to play him over on receptions. But I do like that. Again, it's a little bit scary. I'd go lighter because admittedly, I'm really, really guessing on the Rams tight end usage. They have 4 healthy ones now. Parkinson, Ferguson, Higbee, Davis Allen. From an anytime touchdown score, I'm going to give you a unique look this week because I like the ceiling outcomes for Kyren Williams. So what I'm going to do is play Kyren Williams 2+ touchdowns at plus 850. And I'm going to play Kyren Williams 3+ touchdowns as well at 50 to 1. Those will be the real long shots this week. Typically, I'm going out here, I'm giving long shots for just one anytime touchdown score. I'm going Kyren Williams, multiple bangers this week for anytime touchdown score there. And I think I got through the 4 games in under an hour this week. Just barely. Just barely. I'll give a few seconds here for questions if they want to come through. High usage, but playing the under seems negatively correlated. I mean, I just plugged the usage stuff into the model, and I have Loveland projected for a lot of snaps plus targets to the point where I still think that this number is too high. Any thoughts on Cole Kmet over receptions plus 130? Let's take a look there. I got burned on Kmet. I want to say last week. I've got burned on Kmet a few times. I mean, there's a plus 155 out there right now on Kmet. That's an auto play. I mean, that's a no doubter. At plus 130, let's just say I lean that way, but it wouldn't be something that I would personally play. Fair value on Kyren Williams for 1 touchdown. It was a small edge. I had his fair price. I don't know why this is not loading. In the 116 range, something like that. Plus 116. Just under. Again, I like the ceiling outcomes more for Kyren Williams this game. I think there's a lot of scenarios, essentially, where this game turns into a shootout. I think there's way more scenarios where this game ends with both teams in the 30s than the game finishing 10-7. Let's put it that way. So I like ceiling outcomes there. As a Packers fan, can you give your thoughts on LaFleur staying as a head coach or leaving? I don't think there's a single coach available in the market right now that is going to be better than Matt LaFleur. I think that there's the most important quality for coaches in modern day NFL is being able to scheme up offense. It's why I would tend to gravitate towards good offensive coordinators. I'm not saying that like a DC can't be a good coach. Mike McDonald is a good coach. Some might consider DeMeco Ryans one. I don't know that I would put him in that boat as well. But there's just certain guys that if they were available, I would hire them in a split second because of their ability to scheme offense. Period. CMC Super Bowl MVP bet. I don't know. It would depend on the price. I know FanDuel has all the Super Bowl MVP stuff up. I'll take a look at that. I was looking at that market this morning. I don't know, man. The path for the 49ers Super Bowl, I don't love it. I really don't. Really quickly trying to... Oh, never mind. I'm not going to pull that up. All right. I think that's going to be it for me. Over 1,800 watch live. I will say, if you're looking for more, we still got, 4 hours till kick here. Hitman and Jack Miller from Establish the Run both joined Jason on Hammer Daily yesterday over on the Hammer HQ. If you want to watch that back, they talked each game at a high level. Some of the stuff might have moved, but you'll probably get some ideas on how to play stuff from that. Those are two of the prop bettors that I respect most in the industry right now. I hate to say that. Nobody send this clip to Hitman or anything like that. Please don't tell him I said that. But between Hitman and Jack Miller, those are really, 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 really good prop bettors. So if you want to check that over, Hammer HQ, yesterday's show, really good segments. To all of those out there, it's a wrap for me. As always, make sure you check out our presenting sponsor, FanDuel. All right? Great sportsbook. Some people out there are like, oh, they're not paying out the injury stuff anymore. I'm not going to get my money if the player... I mean, you could bet unders on injuries first and foremost. Here's what FanDuel also is not going to do. You're not going to bet 5 bets there and you're going to get limited to $1, like a lot of the other jabronis in the space. Check out FanDuel. Big thank you to my producer, Mike Bennett, keeping everything running smooth behind the scenes. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Good luck with your bets. I'll see you back here tonight for the live watch along. Going live right around 7:45. I'll run through props, SGPs, anytime touchdowns. You want my fair prices on the game? Join the Discord, discord.gg/hammer. Appreciate you guys. Peace out, everyone. Have a good one.